Hey y'all, it's Jody May. Welcome back for another What's for Dinner with some easy meal ideas. I hope you enjoy. Stick around. We're going to start off with a roast beef hot shot, loaded baked potato soup, country fried steak with mashed potatoes and corn on the cob, and a homemade pepperoni bacon pizza. For this easy dinner idea, we had a roast beef hot shot, and if you guys have not had them, I suggest you try this recipe. They're really good. Now, I'm starting off with 1 pound of thinly sliced roast beef, 4 packs of gravy, some potatoes, and some bread or Texas toast if you prefer. Now here I have already peeled and rinsed my potatoes, cut them into quarters, and got them on the stove to start cooking. And in that pan that I'm adding the gravy packs to, that water has already been to a boil, and I put it on a low simmer. And then I just mixed in the gravy packs per the directions, and then I will add in the roast beef, and I will shred it when I do that. And you guys can cut this recipe for the roast beef gravy in half, but I am doubling my recipe. That way I can put half of this roast beef gravy in the freezer for a future meal. Now once the potatoes are done, I will add in a few tablespoons of butter, some salt and pepper to taste, and a little bit of milk, and then I will just mash them up really well. And while I'm doing that, I've also got bread going into the toaster for some toast. Now here, all I do is just cut the toast in half, put the potatoes in between, and then I cover it with gravy. You can just put the potatoes and the gravy on top of the bread without cutting it, but me, I prefer it in between. Now this here was a super easy dinner, but everybody enjoyed it, and it's definitely a hit, so we will definitely be having it a lot more often. For this dinner, we had an easy throw together loaded baked potato soup, and you guys, it was really, really, really good. So for this recipe, you're going to need some bacon, potatoes, shredded cheddar cheese, sour cream, heavy whipping cream, and I'm probably going to use about half of this container, and some green onions. Now to start this off, I've already peeled and rinsed these potatoes, and then I cut them into bite-sized pieces, and then I got them on to boil. I put the bacon in the oven on a cooking tray. That way I don't have to worry about draining the grease, and it crisps up really well. Now for the potato soup, I don't want a runny mashed potato soup, so in order to get the best consistency, I wait until about 5 minutes before they're completely cooked, and then I add in about 3/4 of a stick of butter, about half a container of that whipping cream like I mentioned, and then salt and pepper to taste. Then I will let that cook for another minute or two, just until the butter gets good and melted, and then I'll start adding in the cheese. I add about 1 to 1.5 cups of the shredded cheese, and then I'll let it sit there for another minute or two until it melts down. Then I start assembling the bowls. With the bowls, I just add just a spoonful of the sour cream, and then I add a couple fingers full of cheddar cheese. Then I'll shred some bacon on the top, and then I'll top it off with some green onions. The reason I don't add the bacon or the onions in before it's completely done is because I don't want the bacon to get all squiggly and mushy. I like a pretty crisp crunch in my potato soup. For this dinner, we had country fried steak, mashed potatoes and gravy, and corn on the cob. My gravy turned out a little bit runny because I forgot to let it sit and simmer for a little bit and thicken back up. So for this recipe, you're going to need some chopped steak, some peppered gravy, some potatoes, corn on the cob, self-rising flour, eggs if you have them, but because I didn't realize I was out, I used buttermilk, but it's actually enhanced the flavor anyway. Now I've already cut and got my potatoes in the water to boil. Up here I have my corn in the pan getting ready to get heated up and cooked. And then here I have my oil preheating and getting ready for the meat. Now I didn't realize that I was completely out of eggs. So I'm just going to use some buttermilk for this recipe. And to the buttermilk I'm just adding a little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt. It's easier to add it to the buttermilk than it is to the flour. So then I'll get that stirred up really good. Now I already have my skillet heating up. It's on about probably medium heat, so hopefully that'll not be too hot to get started here. But here I just have my buttermilk with salt and pepper in it, and then here's just some regular flour, and let's get these going. Now my meat is still a little bit frozen, but it's not completely frozen, so we're going to go with it. I don't have time to wait around today. Now to make country fried steak is pretty easy. This might not be as flaky and crispy crusty as I would like it, but it'll be fine. Same principle. And the buttermilk will give it a better flavor anyway, so it's like a win-win for me today. My arm is probably in the way here, so we're going to move that a little bit. Get these floured up and get them in there. Buttermilk first, then the flour. And all the buttermilk is doing, for one, is giving it a good flavor, but for two, it's also giving something for the flour to stick to. And yes, and I am making a mess. Good Lord have mercy, I am making a mess. But like I said, I already have my corn on. It's getting ready to heat up and cook for about 10 minutes. And then I have my potatoes on now. They are about to start boiling. This is a pretty quick and easy meal, but it can be kind of messy if you're not careful. I gotta say, for my first time making this, it turned out amazing. It is a thin crust bacon and pepperoni pizza. So to make this, you're going to need some Parmesan cheese, mozzarella cheese, pepperoni, bacon, pizza sauce, Italian seasoning, garlic powder, butter, and pizza crusts. Now to start off with, I took about a half a stick of butter and I put it into a coffee cup and used a half a teaspoon of garlic powder and about 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I put it in the microwave to melt it down because I'm going to use this to brush on the crust and drizzle some over top of the pizza. Now there I just took some nonstick spray and sprayed the pizza pan, and then I put the dough in there and tried to get it as round as I possibly could, and with the spray on there it took forever, so I had to cut part of that out of this video. So then I just add on some pizza sauce and get it all the way to the edges really good. Make sure everything is covered okay with it, and then I start adding my toppings. Now I would say that you guys can use any kind of toppings that you guys want, but this here's just what we had on hand and what we used. The only thing I would suggest doing different than I do on this pizza is I did not get enough mozzarella cheese. I normally get the bigger bags, and for whatever reason I grabbed the small ones this time. So my suggestion would be if you like cheesy pizza like we do, would be get 1 bag per large pizza of the cheeses. And then I already had the bacon cooked because I had half of it left over from the potato soup that we made that week. So I just took it, heated some up like a goofball. Instead of cutting it with a knife on my cutting board, I took my hands and tried to shred it, and it kind of was a big fail. So that would be another suggestion, is to make sure that you chop it up with a knife. It wouldn't take quite as long as it did me to tear the bacon apart and put it over top of this pizza. Now, like I mentioned, I would suggest using a whole bag of mozzarella cheese on this, just because it wasn't as cheesy as we like it. You guys might not want as much cheese, but it's totally up to you. But the extra Parmesan that I added on here to make it cheesier, it did enhance the saltiness of it. So I would suggest using just a little bit of the Parmesan. Now here I'm just adding on the butter and the garlic and Italian seasoning that I put in the microwave to melt down. And then I drizzled just a little bit over the top in the middle, just to enhance the flavors just a little bit more. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. If you do, let me know, and let me know what kind of toppings you guys think we should try on the next one, because we are going to be doing this again in the near future because it did turn out really well.